Hey y'all, how you doing today? I'd like to start this one with a question. When you think of a viable SR, what unit comes to mind? Did you say Baldur? Wrong! It's Muse! Yeah, tutorial, teenage, flower girl. But don't take my word for it. Let's see what the general consensus on Muse's viability is. Well, I guess that's settled. This is going to be a total deep dive on her mechanics with strengths and weaknesses to every possible build in detail. So without wasting too much time, let's get down to business. Starting with her ultimate ability, String of Energy, is a 300% damage multiplier, but the real hero of this skill is the stun. A 3-second stun at base and nearly 5 seconds at max. This has a wide area of effect, so you can stun multiple enemies, but the geometry of the damage range is straight and narrow. So if she's placed in a poor position, then it's possible that the ultimate is wasted. She can get distracted by battlefield ads such as Anubis's mummies, turn backwards and launch her ult into an abyss of nothingness. If one of your main reasons for using Muse is the crowd control, you're going to have to wise up to strategic placement fast. But in the right hands, this ability isn't even fair. It's completely devastating and in the right setting, a complete game changer. Against bosses, however, whom are unable to be stunned, this is a mediocre damaging ability at best. Even more impressive than the ultimate though is the active skill Reprise. On paper, this ability doesn't seem like much. You have to get into the technical side to really begin to understand this ability. Reprise recovers 10% of every ally's max health every second for 3 seconds. In addition to the seemingly minor heal, we have another benefit of 20% attack speed to the target. This one can be a bit misleading. With that insane effect that's on every member of your team, it can be easy to think that the attack speed buff is on all of your allies, but it's not. By capturing the ability used in the trial, we can analyze a frame-by-frame comparison of their auto attacks in real time. The attack speed buff is only active long enough that the target can shave a handful of milliseconds off their next auto attack or two. The genius of this ability comes to light the farther in the game you are. Any ability modifiers based on health percentages are terrible for early game, but meta for the end game. Like if I'm level 60, healing 30% of an ally's maximum health is only a third of a full HP bar versus someone like Idun who can drop a heal based off of her attack, which could potentially bring allies to full health. When a level 400 gets healed for 30% of their maximum health, again, this is a third of their health bar, but it's consistent. At any point in the leveling process, there will be discrepancies between healing based on maximum health and healing scaling with the caster's attack. Had enough? It's basically a college essay, enough to give you a migraine at this point, but we're not done yet. The real kicker that ends the controversy is actually a rune set. With water runes, our healing abilities are increased by nearly 40%, and with the full set, healing spells increase the target's dodge by 30% for 3 seconds. So we go through the same process again. Our healing is stronger now, and we have a couple hundred milliseconds the target gets a small defensive boost to complement the offensive one. This active is cast first at the beginning of the match. One lucky ally is going to get a couple of auto attacks before their enemy, and if it's casted on someone that has an attack speed weapon attribute, at that point it's a noticeable difference. The dodge on the target could help them live through a fatal hit, and launching auto attacks faster than the enemy means that that lucky ally also gets their ultimate before the enemy as well. Maybe even it's an ally that needs their ultimate as fast as possible, and the attack speed buff saved your whole match. It is an active skill after all. The first time she casts it won't be the last, and we get to relive the cycle again and again as she continues the battle. You do technically have infinite resets for the ideal outcome, so it's easy to see where the value of this skill might come in. But in terms of the attack speed buff, if you really wanted it, Hippolyta would be the best choice, as her attack speed buff is to all allies, but that's a video for another time. And her last ability is Harmonic Melody. This is the second cast in her rotation that launches a sound wave that bounces between all enemies with a chance to stun them on hit. When fully maxed, this can bounce up to 5 times. It is important to note that she usually casts this right before ultimates go out, which can be an amazing way to prevent a lot of damage from coming our way. When casting an ultimate, if the enemy gets stunned, it's entirely possible that they waste their ult entirely. And how many times this bounces is bound to stun at least one enemy that was rearing up an attack. You can reset the fight as many times as necessary in order to try and get the desired outcome. So there's really nothing to stop you from resetting over and over until you stun the desired target. It's nothing entirely game-changing, but it is also something to take notice of, as this ability is a great tool when properly used to ensure success. Luckily, since this is an SR unit, we don't have the burden of assigning divinity talents, so we can skip them entirely with no worry that maybe we made the wrong choice in the future. Now we can really get into the meat of the build. Since Muse is an SR, we can still equip her with runes and equipments. As stated previously, this greatly increases her viability depending on how creative you can get with her build. She isn't going to be a jack of all trades like Izanami, but she does have a few choices whenever it comes to sets. If you've grown fond of her stunning capabilities, then you may be surprised to find out how many stuns are actually getting thrown out on an air set. Combining the Magatama with an air set on Muse practically doubles the total buff time of your team and also doubles the stuns being tossed around like nothing. You could also throw a nature set on her to try and get the area of effect stun ultimate off before your enemies get their ultimates, making nature good for stages that you're losing because the enemy team is ulting you first. Earth sets are always good for whenever you're getting melted on a stage that's too hard. So if RNG is in your favor, maybe Earth can do you some good down the road too. Especially when paired with the Aegis shield. I wouldn't recommend Thor's hammer because Muse does poorly as a frontline unit. But this last build is one I strongly recommend to use for Muse, and it has never wronged me so far. As I'm sure you already know, the rune set I recommend is the water set for reasons stated previously, but for the artifact, I actually recommend Excalibur. One of the most boring artifacts in the game, but that's kind of the point. Muse is kind of a misfit. She isn't extraordinary at anything she does, but she does a lot. There aren't very many characters I would recommend to use Excalibur, but it's generally accepted that Excalibur is a requirement for top parsing teams. Excalibur is essentially, at its core, an area of effect attack and defense buff for your team. So with Excalibur equipped and a water set equipped, the buffs for our team are as follows. Area of effect heals over time. Area of effect defense increase. Area of effect attack increase. An attack speed buff, and a dodge buff. 5 buffs from a single puny SR. Well, I'll tell you one thing. If I had to choose between a budget secondary SSR that I'm going to be forced to waste divinity gems and sigils on for them to be good, and a multiple stun slinging team buffing stress-free SR, I'll probably choose the latter. Thank you guys so much for watching this. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to check out my wife's Etsy shop, link in the description, or if you're bored, I have a plethora of games available for you to download with my download link that directly supports the channel. But other than that, y'all, that's gonna do it for me today, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.